Massive stone structures stand with impossible precision across our planet. This video will show you the evidence for a prehistoric global survey, a megalith network that proves our ancestors mapped the entire Earth. We will journey from the geometric alignments of Stonehenge to the mysterious ley lines spanning continents, uncovering a lost science of measurement. You will discover how cultures without writing could achieve a feat that challenges our entire understanding of history. How did they connect sites separated by thousands of miles? What common knowledge allowed them to build with such harmony? The answers reveal a forgotten chapter of human intelligence. What does this ancient ambition tell you about our own potential? From the windswept moors of Scotland to the remote shores of Easter Island, a silent stone language endures. These are not random monuments. They form the visible anchors of a global network, a planetary puzzle built with a common blueprint. This megalithic web connects stone circles in Britain to massive tombs in Japan, and towering menhirs in France to intricate temples in Peru. Archaeologists like John Mitchell argued these sites were deliberate nodes in a grand design, placed with precision upon the Earth's surface according to a lost science of measurement. What binds them together are not just stones but ideas. We find the same geometric ratios, like the perfect Pythagorean triangles, encoded in structures thousands of miles apart. We see identical astronomical alignments where corridors and stones frame the solstice sun or the rising of certain stars, repeated across continents. The construction techniques themselves show a puzzling uniformity, a shared understanding of massive stonework that appears to leap across oceans. To grasp the scale of this undertaking is to confront a profound mystery. How could cultures with no apparent contact all decide to build with the same harmonious principles? What shared goal was so important that it compelled humanity to coordinate its greatest building projects? The answer must lie in the tools they used to measure their world. Their tools were deceptively simple. A surveyor of that distant age would have held nothing more than a knotted rope, a set of wooden poles, and a mind filled with the turning patterns of the night sky. Yet with these basic instruments, they achieved a precision that still confounds us. Think of a rope not as a simple cord, but as a physical representation of a mathematical standard. When stretched taut between two stakes, it becomes a perfect straight line. When swung in an arc, it defines a perfect circle. This is the origin of geometry, the measurement of the Earth, born from the most humble of materials. Researchers like Alexander Thom spent decades measuring the stone circles of Britain and France, and he arrived at a startling conclusion. These diverse cultures were not just building with similar styles. They were building with the same ruler. He identified a recurring unit of length, approximately 2.72 of our feet, which he called the megalithic yard. This standard measure appears from one monument to another, separated by hundreds of miles, as if every master builder was working from the same set of blueprints. This shared unit was the foundation for their grander work, the mapping of the land itself. With their sighting poles and ropes, they mastered the art of triangulation. Imagine standing on a high cliff, sighting a distant mountain peak with a simple pole. By moving to a second known location and sighting the same peak, you create a long, narrow triangle. Using the fixed distance between your two observation points as a baseline and measuring the angles to the peak, you can calculate its exact distance with nothing but geometry. This method, repeated over and over, could chart an entire coastline or measure the span of a wide valley. It is a technique we still use today in modern surveying, yet they perfected it with sticks and string. For leveling their massive foundations, they turned to water. A water level, just a trough or a length of hollowed-out wood filled with water, gives a perfectly horizontal line regardless of the slope of the ground. A simple grommet, a cross-shaped instrument that casts shadows, could establish true north by tracking the sun's path. This was not magic. It was a profound, practical intelligence, a deep understanding of natural forces translated into stone. How did they maintain such unerring accuracy across projects that spanned generations? They were not just looking at the land. They were looking up, synchronizing their work with the most reliable clock they had, the cosmos itself. The night sky was their grandest blueprint, a perfect clockwork of stars and planets that never failed. Ancient builders watched this celestial dance for generations, learning its rhythms until they could predict the motions of the sun and moon with stunning accuracy. At Newgrange in Ireland, a tomb older than the pyramids, a narrow roof box perfectly channels the rays of the winter solstice sunrise, flooding the inner chamber with light for a few precious minutes. This was not a lucky alignment. It was the result of patient, deliberate observation, a project that would have required decades to plan and execute. The monument itself became a permanent calendar, marking the year's rebirth with unerring certainty. This celestial knowledge reached its peak at Stonehenge. Astronomer Gerald Hawkins analyzed its famous stones and proposed that the arrangement could be used to track not just the sun, but the more complex cycles of the moon. He suggested it was a kind of prehistoric computer capable of predicting eclipses. Specific alignments between the massive trilithons and the smaller bluestones seemed to correspond with the moon's most extreme rising and setting points over its 18.6-year cycle. An eclipse would have been a terrifying event, a moment when the established order of the world seemed to break. The ability to foresee such an event, to know the sun would return, granted its builders immense power and confirmed their deep connection to the cosmos. But the stars offered more than just time. They were a global navigation system. The heliacal rising of Sirius, when the star first becomes visible just before dawn after a period of invisibility, signaled the coming Nile flood in Egypt. In the Pacific, Polynesian voyagers used the stars to guide their canoes across thousands of miles of open ocean. These celestial events provided universal calendar dates and directional markers. A star that rose due east from one location would do the same from another, offering a fixed point of reference anyone could learn to use. This shared celestial language allowed disparate cultures to synchronize their efforts, creating a sacred geography where temples and stone circles were placed as terrestrial reflections of heavenly patterns. The Earth itself was being mapped according to the stars, so if the stars guided their placement of monuments, what lines did they draw between them? The answer lies in the land itself, in the mysterious straight tracks that connected these sacred sites. Draw a straight line on a map from the Great Stone Circle at Observatories through the mystical hill of Glastonbury Tor and continue that line across the English countryside. You will find it passes through other ancient mounds and old churches built on even older sacred ground. This is a ley line, a concept that bridges folklore and a tantalizing archaeological mystery. In the 1920s, an amateur archaeologist named Alfred Watkins looked across the British landscape and had a vision of it crisscrossed with straight tracks, invisible pathways connecting hilltops, springs, and stone circles. He called these alignments ley lines, suggesting they were ancient trade routes or navigational sightlines, but the idea soon took on a life of its own. What if these lines were more than just old roads? What if they marked flows of a subtle energy within the Earth itself? This proposition moves the mystery from the stones to the very soil beneath them. Some researchers point to geology, noting that many sacred sites sit atop geological fault lines. where underground water flows and unique magnetic variations can be measured. The theory suggests that ancient builders, perhaps more attuned to these subtle forces, could perceive this energy and chose to mark its pathways with their most enduring monuments. The Great Circle alignment in England is a powerful example, connecting major sites in a near-perfect straight line over a long distance. To dismiss all such alignments as mere coincidence seems statistically improbable. The chance that so many significant, labor-intensive sites would randomly fall on such precise geometric lines is mathematically slim. This forces a difficult question. Were these lines simply practical sightlines for travelers, or did they represent a foundational layer of the megalithic network, a map of the planet's own invisible energy system? The landscape in this view was not a blank slate. It was a living, breathing participant in their grand design, its hidden currents guiding the placement of stones that would stand for millennia. For the master builders of the ancient world, numbers were not just for counting. They were the hidden language of creation itself. A circle's circumference always relates to its diameter by the ratio we call pi. A seashell grows in a spiral governed by the golden ratio, or phi. These are not human inventions, but universal constants, and the megalithic architects wove them directly into their stone canvases. Look at the Great Pyramid. The relationship between the perimeter of its base and its original height is a precise expression of 2 times pi. This means the builders were not only aware of this irrational number, they were applying it with breathtaking precision in a structure of immense scale, long before such mathematics were formally recognized. This was not an isolated feat. The very same principles appear in a stone circle in Britain and a temple complex in India. They form a shared sacred geometry, a universal code of proportions that seems to link the small to the large, the human scale to the cosmic order. Alexander Thom's surveys revealed a pattern far more sophisticated than simple circles. He found that many monuments were based on complex flattened circles and egg-shaped layouts, all constructed using Pythagorean triangles. These are the perfect right-angled triangles with sides in whole number ratios like 3, 4, 5. This is pure, practical trigonometry. Yet these stones were raised thousands of years before the Greek philosopher Pythagoras was even born. So why go to such mathematical trouble? The goal was more than structural stability. It was about resonance. These specific ratios were believed to embody a fundamental harmony, a balance that could connect a physical place with the invisible order of the universe. By building with these proportions, they were not merely constructing a tomb or a temple. They were tuning it like a musical instrument to vibrate in sympathy with the cosmos. This grand ambition demanded more than just knowledge. It required a common ruler, a standardized unit of measure that could be shared across continents and generations to bring this precise vision to life. This single unit of measure, the megalithic yard, echoes across the landscape. You can find it in the diameter of a stone circle in the Scottish Highlands, and then again in the perimeter of a massive dolmen on the coast of France. Alexander Thom's analysis of hundreds of sites revealed this same measurement, a length of about 2.72 feet, repeating with a statistical consistency that defies random chance. This was not a local builder's rule of thumb. It was a continent-spanning standard. The sheer improbability of this recurrence forces a profound question. How could cultures separated by sea and mountain, with no evidence of shared politics or language, all adhere to the same precise unit of length? The answer must lie in a shared method of defining the measure itself. One compelling theory points to a simple pendulum. A rope of a specific length, when swung, completes its arc in a fixed time. It is possible the megalithic yard was derived from a pendulum that beat a precise count. perhaps linked to a fraction of a day's rotation, creating a measurement that was not just portable, but reproducible by anyone, anywhere, using the fundamental constants of time and gravity. Another possibility is that it was drawn from astronomical observation, a small fraction of a degree of the Earth's circumference made tangible. This transforms the megalithic yard from a simple ruler into something far more significant. It becomes a fossilized piece of a shared scientific language, a testament to a level of international cooperation in prehistory that we scarcely credit. There was no central bureau of standards, no written specification to consult. The consistency of this measure had to be maintained through an intensely disciplined, orally transmitted tradition of learning, passed from master to apprentice over countless generations. This universal measure provided the essential tool for the next, almost unimaginable, leap in their project. With a common ruler in hand, they could begin the ultimate task of plotting their sacred sites not just on a flat map, but upon the vast, curving surface of the Earth itself. The megalithic yard was more than a tool for local construction. It was the key to a far greater project, the mapping of a spherical Earth. We celebrate the Greek Eratosthenes for calculating our planet's circumference in the 3rd century before Christ, but the stones suggest this knowledge is vastly more ancient. The precise placement of monuments across the globe implies their builders worked with a clear understanding of latitude and longitude long before such concepts had names. Consider the Great Circle of Stones at Avebury in England. It sits at a latitude of 51.4 degrees north. Follow this parallel around the world. It does not merely pass through random countryside. It intersects with sacred sites, ancient cities, and significant geological features across Europe and Asia, as if tracing a sacred belt around the planet. This is not likely a series of happy accidents. It points to a deliberate, coordinated effort to mark specific global coordinates. To achieve such precision, these ancient surveyors had to master spherical geometry. They were not drawing lines on a flat map. They were plotting points on a curved surface, compensating for the Earth's bulge in their long-distance alignments. The mathematical sophistication required is staggering. How could they possibly have done it without satellites or even a confirmed ability to sail across the open ocean? Their tools were the heavens and the horizon. By carefully tracking the sun's altitude at the solstice, or the specific stars that circled directly overhead at different locations, they could determine their precise latitude. Longitude was trickier but not impossible over land, using a system of synchronized signal fires or a chain of observers timing celestial events. The evidence hints at a coordinated network of observers sharing data across continents. This suggests a level of communication and shared purpose that rewrites our view of prehistory. It forces us to consider the unthinkable, that a shared global civilization, or at the very least a worldwide scientific priesthood, existed in the deep mists of time, leaving its signature upon the land in stone and alignment. These great megalithic centers were far more than isolated temples. Giza, Delphi, and Chichen Itza acted as the beating hearts of the megalithic network, ancient information hubs where knowledge converged and was redistributed. Picture them as the original oracles, not merely offering prophecies but functioning as vast repositories of science, astronomy, and cultural memory. Their locations were not chosen by chance. They were positioned at key geodetic points, intersections in the planet's subtle energetic and geological fabric, making them ideal centers for learning and coordination. Within these spaces, the very architecture seems designed to manipulate perception. The massive corbelled chamber inside Newgrange possesses remarkable acoustic properties. A single voice or rhythm can be amplified and transformed, creating resonant frequencies that some researchers suggest could have been used in sound-based rituals. or even for sending low-frequency signals across vast distances, a speculative but fascinating theory for long-range communication. The pilgrimage to these centers was the network's lifeblood. Travelers would journey for months, carrying not only goods but also precious information. A new method for predicting an eclipse, a more efficient way to move massive stones, an updated star chart, all these ideas would be exchanged and refined at the great annual gatherings. This constant flow of people and knowledge acted as a synchronizing pulse, ensuring that the standards of the megalithic yard and the principles of sacred geometry remained consistent from one generation to the next, from one continent to another. This entire system formed a kind of prehistoric internet, a world-wide web of stone and spirit. Knowledge was not stored on servers but in the landscape itself, encoded in the alignments of monuments, the proportions of chambers, and the intricate patterns of oral tradition. To maintain such a complex and far-reaching network required more than just technical skill. It demanded a profound, spiritual relationship with the living earth, a connection that saw the land not as a resource to be used, but as a sacred partner in a cosmic dance. A profound sense of place still lingers at locations like Sedona or Mount Shasta, where the land itself feels awake. This ancient art of reading the landscape, known as geomancy, guided the megalith builders to their most sacred sites. They did not see the earth as an inert rock, but as a living, breathing entity crisscrossed with energy pathways and concentrated power centers, much like the meridians and chakras of the human body. Their monuments were not placed randomly upon this living grid. They were deliberately positioned to interact with it, to amplify the Earth's natural energies, or to bring them into a state of perfect harmony. This was a science that married sharp empirical observation with deep spiritual intuition. A bubbling spring, a uniquely shaped hill, a stand of ancient trees, or even the behavior of animals could all signal a location humming with unseen power, an ideal spot to raise a stone circle or break ground for a temple. This geomantic instinct ensured the entire network was more than a feat of engineering. It was a living, breathing system, a symbiotic relationship between humanity and the planet. Their goal was not to conquer the landscape, but to converse with it, to build in resonance with the spirit of the place itself. This holistic worldview, where mathematics and mysticism were one, explains the incredible devotion behind their work. Why else would generations of people dedicate their lives to moving stones that weighed more than houses? The answer is etched into the monumental scale of their ambition, a testament to what humans can achieve when they work in concert with the world, not against it. Standing before the colossal stones of Baalbek, you are faced with a logistical puzzle that defies simple explanation. How do you move a block of granite weighing more than 1,000 tons, a mass equal to 2 fully loaded jumbo jets, without the wheel, without iron, and without powered machinery? The answer lies in a forgotten school of engineering, one that turned simple physics into a form of high art. The most widely accepted theories involve a symphony of coordinated labor. They likely used wooden sledges greased with animal fat, sliding over carefully prepared tracks of logs that acted as rollers, with teams of workers pulling on ropes made of plant fibers and others using massive levers to inch the stone forward. They could conquer immense distances. This was not a frantic struggle, but a slow, rhythmic, and meticulously planned operation. The sound would have been a constant, low groan of wood under unimaginable stress, the shouted chants of the work crews keeping time, a human engine driving a geological cargo. Yet some legends speak of a different method entirely, a technology that seems to belong to the realm of fantasy. Stories from diverse cultures describe the use of sound, of specific chants or instruments, to make the great stones lose their weight and glide effortlessly through the air. While mainstream science dismisses acoustic levitation, these persistent myths point to a profound truth. They symbolize a lost knowledge, a deep understanding of natural forces that we can no longer easily access. The quarrying itself reveals another layer of their genius. At the Baalbek complex, the so-called stone of the pregnant woman remains in its quarry, partially detached from the bedrock. The precision of its cuts is flawless. They did not simply smash the rock free. They understood its crystalline structure, driving wooden wedges into precisely drilled holes and then soaking them with water. As the wood expanded with tremendous, silent force, it would cleanly split the stone along a perfect plane. This technique required an intimate knowledge of materials, a patience that spanned seasons, and a confidence that the stone would obey the laws of physics as they understood them. This scale of work demanded a society of unparalleled organization. It was not enough to have strong backs. You needed architects who could visualize the final structure, foremen who could coordinate hundreds of laborers, and logisticians who could manage food, water, and shelter for a workforce that might have numbered in the thousands for decades. This was a civilization in its own right, bound together by a shared, sacred purpose that justified this monumental investment. Why would a culture pour all of its resources, for generation after generation, into such a backbreaking task? The answer must be that these stones were not just buildings, they were the ultimate expression of their identity, a testament to their connection with the cosmos, written in a language of enduring granite. The fact that we find this same obsessive dedication to moving the immovable, from the moors of Britain to the plains of Peru, suggests something astounding. It was not just an idea that spread, it was a shared technological tradition, a common blueprint for turning a vision into reality, one impossible stone at a time. Carved into a standing stone in Scotland, you might find a spiral that seems to swirl inward forever. On a temple wall in Malta, the same pattern appears. Scratched into the rocks of the American Southwest, it is there again. This is no coincidence. The spiral, the zigzag, and the mysterious cup and ring mark, a circular depression surrounded by concentric rings, form a global vocabulary etched in granite. These are not mere decorations, they are a silent language, a pictographic code that bypassed all spoken tongues, connecting the minds of builders across the world. A spiral could chart the journey of the soul, the turning of the seasons, or the vast whirl of the galaxy itself. Zigzags might map the serpentine path of underground water or the flash of lightning from the heavens. These symbols encoded a shared understanding of the cosmos, a universal grammar of creation and measurement. The myths these cultures told were just as connected. Scholar Joseph Campbell spent his life tracing the threads of common stories. He found that a great flood narrative appears in the legends of the Mesopotamians, the indigenous peoples of the Americas, and the islanders of the Pacific. A hero who slays a dragon or a great serpent is a figure found from ancient Sumer to the mountains of Japan. These are not just similar ideas, they feel like different dialects of the same fundamental story, suggesting a common ancestral tradition that spread across the globe in the deep past, long before written history began. This symbolic unity extends to the very orientation of their sacred spaces. From the massive chambered tombs of Ireland's Boyne Valley to the pyramids of the Maya, entrances consistently face the west, the realm of the setting sun. This was universally understood as the direction of the afterlife, the land of the dead. To build a tomb facing any other direction would have been unthinkable, a violation of a cosmic rule known to all. Unraveling this symbolic code is like finding the key to a lost library. The shelves of this library are the stones themselves, and its books are the carvings that have weathered millennia. To read them, we must look at specific cases, starting with one of the most persistent and powerful symbols of them all, the spiral, and its journey across the ancient world. The spiral carved into a stone in Ireland's Newgrange is a near-perfect mirror of a pattern found high in the Andes. This is the heart of a mystery that divides researchers, the theory of a lost civilization often called Atlantis. Proponents of this idea look at the world's most impressive stonework and see not independent invention, but a single, forgotten source. They point to the uncanny resemblance between the Cyclopean walls of Mycenaean Greece and the polygonal masonry of Sacsayhuaman in Peru. Both feature massive, irregular blocks fitted together with such jaw-dropping precision that you cannot slip a piece of paper between them, a technique that seems to defy the separate evolution of building styles. Then there is the pyramid itself, the stepped pyramids of Mesopotamia, the smooth-sided giants of Egypt, and the towering temples of the Maya and Aztec all share a fundamental form and a sacred function. They are not just tombs or temples, they are man-made mountains reaching for the heavens, often aligned to the cardinal directions with unnerving accuracy. The Giza Plateau in Egypt and the city of Teotihuacan in Mexico, for instance, both feature pyramids aligned to true north with a margin of error that seems impossible without a shared, advanced understanding of astronomy and geodesy. This theory offers a seductively simple answer to the puzzle of parallel development. Could a seafaring culture, a maritime civilization lost to the rising seas at the end of the last ice age, have navigated the globe? Perhaps their ships carried not just trade goods but architects and astronomers, a priesthood of measurement that provided the foundational blueprint for all who came after. This idea persists not because it has concrete proof, but because it dares to ask a question mainstream archaeology struggles to answer. It forces us to reconsider the conventional timeline of human exploration. We are taught that the oceans were impassable barriers until relatively recently, yet the stones themselves whisper a different story, one of ancient voyages and a common intellectual heritage that once spanned the planet. While the Great Pyramids were being set in stone, another civilization was mastering the world's largest ocean without leaving a single written word. The Polynesian voyagers embarked on journeys that make the Mediterranean seem like a pond, sailing double-hulled canoes across thousands of miles of empty Pacific. They did not navigate by guesswork. They used a living science, a mental map of the cosmos and the sea itself. Their star compass divided the horizon into 32 houses, each named for a celestial body that rose or set in that specific direction. The star known to us as Arcturus was their guide to the Hawaiian Islands. Sirius pointed the way to Tahiti. This was not just memorizing stars, it was understanding the sky as a fixed, rotating dome, where every island had its own celestial address, a zenith star that passed directly overhead, confirming you had reached your destination. But the sky was only one page of their map. On cloudy nights, they read the ocean swells. Long, deep waves generated by distant weather systems created reliable patterns, a rhythm of the sea that acted like a network of paved highways. A trained navigator could lie in the hull of his canoe and feel these swells through his body, maintaining his course by the constant, rolling direction of the energy beneath him. The flight paths of birds told them of unseen land. A tern flying out at dawn and returning at dusk revealed an island just beyond the horizon. This entire system of knowledge, the star paths, the sea roads, and the bird signs, was stored not in books but in chants. Elaborate oral genealogies and sailing songs encoded this vital information, passed with meticulous accuracy from one generation of navigators to the next. When they finally made landfall, they marked their claim on the New World with stone. They built sacred platforms of coral and basalt that served as the spiritual and social center of their community. These were not simple piles of rock. The Mari were precisely oriented, often aligned to the solstice sunrises, creating a local model of the cosmic order, a miniature of the heavens here on Earth. The Polynesian achievement stands as a stunning, historically documented proof of concept. It demonstrates conclusively that a culture can map a vast portion of the planet, traverse it with repeatable precision, and mark its significant points with aligned stone structures, all without a single line of writing or a metal tool. Their living tradition offers us a precious window. It shows us that the wider megalithic network was not a fantasy. It was a tangible, achievable reality, built on a foundation of profound observation and a sacred conversation with the natural world. Deep within the Amazon, a rainforest long thought to be a pristine wilderness, the Earth itself holds a secret. For centuries, these enormous designs remained invisible, cloaked by a dense green canopy. Only from high above, through the lens of modern technology like satellite imagery and aerial surveys, has their true scale been revealed. The ground opens into vast geometric earthworks, perfect circles and precise squares formed by deep ditches and high banks stretching for hundreds of feet. This is not the work of a small, nomadic tribe. These geoglyphs are the signature of a complex, organized society, one capable of reshaping the landscape itself according to a sophisticated geometrical plan. Their purpose is a heated debate. Were they ceremonial centers, defensive structures, or perhaps astronomical observatories? Intriguingly, many of these earthworks align with the solstice sun, and their placement seems to connect them to other ancient sites across South America, forming a continental network that echoes the ley lines of Europe. This discovery fundamentally shatters the old narrative of an untouched primeval Amazon. It reveals instead a land once managed by a populous and technologically adept civilization, a people who understood large-scale engineering and celestial cycles. The Amazonian geoglyphs are a monumental piece of evidence, proving that the drive to measure and mark the Earth was a truly global human impulse. This was not an old-world phenomenon. It was a universal language of form and alignment, spoken from the British Isles to the heart of the South American jungle. And with each passing year, new technologies peel back more layers of the forest, promising that our map of this ancient world is still woefully incomplete, with countless more discoveries waiting beneath the leaves. Step inside a megalithic chamber and speak in a low voice. You might feel the sound as much as you hear it, a deep vibration that hums through the stone floor and into your bones. This is no accident of architecture. Across the network, from the passage graves of Ireland to the underground temples of Malta, these structures possess extraordinary acoustic properties, engineered to manipulate sound with a precision that rivals their visual alignments. Researcher Paul Devereux championed the field of archaeoacoustics, the study of sound in ancient sites, and his work reveals a startling pattern. Specific chambers resonate at particular frequencies, often corresponding to the range of the male chanting voice. At the Hypogeum of Malta, a labyrinthine underground complex carved from solid rock, one chamber is known as the Oracle Room. A voice spoken into a small, sculpted niche in the wall is projected and amplified, its vibrations echoing throughout the entire lower level with an otherworldly power. This is not mere echo. It is resonance, a physical coupling where the sound wave matches the natural vibrational frequency of the chamber itself, creating a standing wave that can be felt physically in the chest and the inner ear. The builders were not just stone masons, they were masters of a forgotten physics, using the material itself as a tuning fork. Why would they go to such lengths? The intentional use of sound, and even infrasound, which is below the range of human hearing, points toward a technology of consciousness. Certain resonant frequencies are known to affect brainwave patterns, potentially guiding the mind into meditative, trance-like states. In a ritual setting, surrounded by the thunderous drone of drums or the unified chant of dozens of voices amplified by the stone, a participant's perception could be profoundly altered. The boundary between the self and the environment might soften, creating a powerful, shared experience of unity with the geomantic energies the site was built upon. This sonic layer transforms our understanding of the network. It was not a silent, static map. It was a living system designed for activation. The precise placement of a stone could channel terrestrial energy, while the resonant frequency of a chamber could tune human consciousness to perceive it. The network was meant to be played like a grand instrument, its stones the strings and its chambers the sounding boxes, all orchestrated to facilitate a spiritual experience and access a state of higher knowledge. This multi-sensory design reveals an ambition that goes far beyond mere astronomy or surveying. It suggests the ultimate goal was a complete harmonization of humanity, architecture, and the living earth, using every tool available to bridge the gap between the material and the unseen. A stone beacon on a distant headland would have been a welcome sight for any ancient mariner. These coastal markers, placed on high cliffs and visible islands, formed the backbone of a prehistoric guidance system, a chain of stone lighthouses stretching across the known world. Sailors navigating the treacherous currents of the Atlantic or the island-dotted Aegean could plot their course from one prominent cairn to the next, moving with confidence even when out of sight of land for short periods. This was not random placement. In regions like coastal Portugal and Brittany, you find a clear correlation where massive dolmens and towering menhirs line up along what we now know were established Bronze Age trade routes. These stones were more than just landmarks. They were nodes in a vast communication network. A trader from the eastern Mediterranean, following this stone trail westward, would not only be bringing rare goods like amber and tin, he would be carrying the very blueprint for the next monument. He could describe the complex corbelled roof of Atholo's tomb he saw in Greece, and within a generation, a local version might rise on a cliff in Ireland. This system explains the puzzlingly rapid spread of megalithic technology. It was not a slow cultural drift. It was a purposeful transmission of knowledge, sailing on established sea roads and guided by the silent, stoic sentinels of stone. The entire coastline was transformed into a mapped and measured highway, with each new monument reinforcing the network and expanding its reach. But if the stones guided travelers across the oceans, what happened when they reached their destination? The journey inland reveals another layer of this ancient guidance system, one that moved from the open sea to the heart of the sacred landscape itself. The silent stones did not build themselves. Behind every aligned menhir and every solstice-marking chamber stood a living mind, a person who held the keys to the entire system. These were the ancient knowledge keepers, the druids, shamans, and priestly astronomers who functioned as the living libraries of the megalithic world. They were the human hard drives upon which the entire blueprint for the network was stored. Their training was a lifelong discipline of memory and observation. From a young age, initiates would commit to memory vast star charts, complex genealogies of ruling families, epic histories of migration, and the precise ritual formulas required to maintain the sacred energy of a site. This was not a casual recitation. It was a rigorous, verbatim preservation of information, a technology of the mind so refined that it could transmit complex data across hundreds of years without a single word being written down or lost. Imagine the mind of a master surveyor who could recite the precise astronomical alignments for a dozen different temples, who held the standard for the megalithic yard not in a physical object, but in the rhythm of his own footsteps. These individuals were the true engineers. They were the ones who directed where to place the first foundation stone, guided by secrets passed from master to apprentice in a chain unbroken for millennia. Their role was to be the bridge, the vital connection between the human community, the turning heavens above, and the living spirit of the land beneath their feet. They interpreted the subtle language of the earth, choosing locations where the energy was right for a stone circle, and they synchronized human activity with the cosmic clockwork of solstices and eclipses. The power they wielded was not of force but of understanding. They knew when to plant and when to harvest based on the stars. They could predict the terrifying moment of an eclipse, calming the fears of the people. This profound knowledge gave them immense authority, but it also came with a sacred responsibility to maintain the balance of the entire system. And this is perhaps the greatest vulnerability the network ever faced. This immense body of knowledge existed only in the minds of a select few. When those chains of oral tradition were broken by invasion, famine, or the slow creep of a new worldview, the original purpose of the stones faded into folklore. The libraries did not burn, they simply fell silent. The deep meaning behind the alignments was forgotten, leaving behind only the magnificent, mysterious stones and a question that has echoed through the centuries. The stones still stand, but their builders vanished into a profound silence. A great cataclysm, perhaps a swarm of comet fragments striking the Earth or a rapid rise in sea levels, shattered the world around 12,000 years ago. Global temperatures plummeted, ice sheets advanced and then collapsed, raising the oceans by hundreds of feet in a geological instant. This was not a slow change. It was a planetary reset button, flooding coastlines and burying continents under unimaginable torrents of water and ice. The unified culture, or the interconnected network of knowledge keepers, was violently fragmented. Isolated pockets of humanity survived, but the grand conversation that spanned the globe was severed. The intricate web of the megalithic network was torn apart, its connecting threads lost beneath the waves. The survivors were left with only shattered pieces of the old science. They remembered the forms, the rituals of building with great stones, but the deeper understanding, the precise mathematical and geodetic reasoning, faded into a cultural amnesia. This was the great forgetting. What remained was embedded in myth and symbol. The hard science of a lost age softened into the language of gods and heroes. The advanced knowledge of Earth measurement became the story of a flood sent by angry deities. The precise astronomical alignments were remembered as the pathways of sun gods and moon chariots. Cultures across the world, from the Sumerians to the indigenous peoples of the Americas, all preserved a core memory of this event in their flood myths, a shared trauma written into their foundational stories. They continued to build. You see the echo of the old network in the later stone circles and burial mounds that arose across Europe, but something was missing. The alignments were a little less precise. The unit of measurement, the megalithic yard, began to drift and vary from region to region. They were building from a faded memory, preserving the outer shell of the tradition while its brilliant inner workings were lost. Over the centuries, even these faded memories dimmed. The precession of the equinoxes, the slow, 26,000-year wobble in the Earth's axis, completed the work of time. The stars that once rose directly over a keystone gradually shifted their positions. The solstice sun no longer struck the central altar with the same perfect beam. The network, a machine built with the heavens as its moving parts, slowly fell out of sync. Its purpose, which depended on this perfect celestial timing, became incomprehensible. What was once a planet-spanning scientific instrument became a sacred ruin, its original function fading into local legend, a place of fairy folk or ancestral spirits. The evidence for this reset is not just in the stones. It is in the ice cores from Greenland that show a sudden, dramatic temperature drop. It is in the geological strata that hold a layer of extraterrestrial material, evidence of an impact event. It is in the undersea ruins off the coasts of India and Japan, structures now submerged by the post-glacial sea level rise. To understand the megaliths, we must learn to read this new evidence, to see the ruins not as the beginning of human civilization, but as the fragmented inheritance of a world that came before. The quiet persistence of a few dedicated outsiders would eventually force the academic world to listen. A retired Scottish engineer named Alexander Thom spent his holidays not in relaxation, but in meticulous fieldwork, surveying hundreds of stone circles across Britain and France with a theodolite. He was not searching for myth, he was collecting data, thousands of precise measurements of stone positions and alignments. From this mountain of numbers, a pattern emerged with the clarity of a mathematical proof. These ancient builders were not primitive farmers stacking rocks. They were sophisticated engineers using a standardized unit of length, the megalithic yard, and constructing complex geometrical forms, ellipses and egg-shaped rings based on Pythagorean triangles. His work, published in the 1960s, was a thunderclap. It proposed a prehistory of precision that challenged the conventional narrative of the time. Around the same period, an astronomer named Gerald Hawkins turned a new tool toward an old mystery. He used an early IBM computer to analyze the alignments at Stonehenge, testing thousands of potential celestial correlations. His conclusion, published in the journal Nature in 1963, was just as revolutionary. He argued the monument was not merely aligned to the solstices, but functioned as a sophisticated astronomical computer, capable of predicting eclipses by tracking the complex cycles of the moon. The archaeological establishment was deeply skeptical, even hostile. How could these outsiders, these interlopers from engineering and astronomy, claim to understand ancient cultures better than the trained excavators? Yet the data was there, reproducible and stark. Their pioneering work created a new scientific discipline, a bridge between the hard sciences and the humanities. They were followed by visionaries like John Michell, who wove together geometry, ancient metrology, and landscape studies to argue for a sacred geography spanning the globe. He saw the megaliths not as isolated tombs, but as interconnected nodes in a planetary grid. Today, their legacy is being realized beyond their wildest dreams. The revolution continues with technologies they could never have imagined. LiDAR, which uses laser pulses to see through dense forest canopy, is revealing entire cities and earthworks hidden for millennia in places like the jungles of Cambodia and Guatemala. Satellite imagery allows researchers to scan entire continents from their desks, identifying subtle Earth patterns and potential alignments invisible from the ground. We are no longer just measuring the stones we can see. We are finding the ones that were lost, filling in the blank spaces on the map of the ancient world at an astonishing rate. This is not the end of the mystery. It is a new beginning. Each discovery adds another piece to the puzzle, forcing a profound and humbling reevaluation of the human story. What we are learning compels us to ask not what was lost, but what we might still recover from the silent wisdom of the stones. Mainstream archaeology presents a powerful and necessary counterpoint to these grand theories. Its skepticism is not born of stubbornness, but of a rigorous demand for verifiable proof. The central argument is one of elegant simplicity. Could the precise alignments we see simply be the result of chance? When you have thousands of ancient sites scattered across a landscape, some are bound to line up by random probability alone. Human brains are wired to find patterns, to connect dots, and we might be imposing a modern grid of meaning onto a prehistoric world that operated on a much simpler logic. These critics point to the complete absence of any surviving written records, complex surveying tools, or detailed maps from these deep-time cultures. Without a clay tablet showing a Pythagorean theorem or a bronze instrument for measuring latitude, the entire edifice of a global surveying network rests on circumstantial evidence. They propose that generations of patient, simple observation of the sun's shadow could account for solstice alignments, and that local units of measure, like the cubit or the foot, developed independently based on the human body, not from a shared scientific standard. This view sees the megaliths as magnificent but ultimately local achievements, the slow and steady accumulation of practical knowledge passed from father to son. This perspective is a vital anchor, preventing our curiosity from drifting into pure fantasy. It forces us to ask the hard questions. Yet, when we examine the full scope of the evidence, the chance explanation begins to strain under its own weight. Can random chance really account for the same complex geometry, the flattened circles and Pythagorean triangles, appearing in monuments separated by centuries and continents? Is it plausible that the unit of the megalithic yard, a length not based on any obvious part of the human body, was independently invented dozens of times with such minimal variation? The sheer engineering audacity itself becomes a form of evidence. Moving a 1,000-ton block of stone is not a matter of simple trial and error. It is a logistical operation that requires a command of physics, mass organization, and a pre-existing confident blueprint. One failed attempt would have been catastrophically expensive in lives and resources. The mainstream view often struggles to explain the why. Why would countless cultures with no contact all choose to invest unimaginable labor into such similar, astronomically precise structures if it were not serving a shared, profound purpose? A true scientific method does not ignore inconvenient data. It follows the evidence even when that path leads to conclusions that challenge our deepest assumptions about the journey of humanity. A mathematical shadow falls across the scattered stones, a pattern emerging from what once seemed like chaos. This is not a matter of belief, but of calculation, of running the numbers to see if the ancient world truly was designed. Modern researchers are applying the rigorous tools of spatial statistics to the global distribution of megalithic sites, testing a simple but profound hypothesis. The null model assumes the sites are randomly placed like seeds scattered by the wind. The alternative suggests a deliberate, intelligent hand behind their arrangement. Giulio Magli and others have taken on this challenge, feeding vast datasets of site locations and orientations into complex algorithms. They are not looking for one or two impressive alignments. They are asking if the entire set, hundreds of monuments across a continent, displays a consistent, non-random signature. The results are striking. When you plot the orientation of tomb entrances or the central axes of temples, they do not point in every direction equally. There is a clear, overwhelming statistical preference for specific azimuths, angles that correspond to the rising and setting of the sun at the solstices or the cyclical extremes of the moon. The probability that this collective behavior could arise by pure chance is not just low, it is astronomically small, a number so minute it effectively rules out coincidence as a viable explanation. This numerical evidence transforms the mystery. It moves the conversation from romantic speculation into the realm of falsifiable, hard science. A single alignment could be a lucky guess. A dozen might be intriguing, but when hundreds of sites, built over millennia by cultures supposedly unaware of each other, all adhere to the same celestial blueprint, the data points to a coordinated intelligence. This is the silent testimony of the stones, translated into the universal language of mathematics. It forms an unshakable bedrock for the entire argument, proving that the network was not a happy accident of history, but the product of a shared, measured, and profoundly deliberate plan. The stones have not lost their voice. Even now, in our age of satellites and digital noise, they pull millions of people across the globe. A family on vacation, a spiritual seeker with a crystal, an archaeologist with a laser scanner, all stand before the same silent stones, each feeling a different kind of call. Sites like Machu Picchu and Stonehenge have become more than monuments. They feel like active interfaces, places where the gap between our time and theirs grows thin, allowing a strange and powerful resonance to bleed through. This magnetic pull is not just about history. It is about a presence that defies simple explanation, a feeling in the air that something here is still awake. Modern dowsers walk the fields around these ancient sites with their copper rods and pendulums, mapping what they describe as powerful energy lines and vortexes. They claim the stones act as amplifiers for the Earth's own subtle currents, and that the old straight tracks, the ley lines, are not just folklore but living circuits of this planetary energy. While science may dismiss these claims as unverifiable, the sheer consistency of the reports is striking. People from different cultures and backgrounds, with no contact, independently describe sensing the same palpable force at the same specific locations. This points to a subjective but very real human experience of the land, a way of knowing that our modern tools cannot yet quantify. Across the world, contemporary spiritual movements are attempting to reconnect these points. They organize gatherings at stone circles during solstices and equinoxes, not as historical reenactments, but as active efforts to reboot the network, to send a pulse of intention through what they see as a dormant global system. This enduring power makes the preservation of these sites a race against time. They are a non-renewable resource, not just of cultural heritage, but of scientific and consciousness data. Every time a stone is moved for development, or a delicate earthwork is eroded by unchecked tourism, we are not just losing a rock, we are burning a page from the only library we have from that deep past. The information encoded in their placement and alignment is a unique dataset, a record of a different kind of intelligence. These places challenge the very core of our materialist worldview. They stand as permanent, physical proof that our ancestors operated with a different operating system for reality, one that seamlessly wove together astronomy, geology, mathematics, and a spiritual reverence for a living Earth. To walk among these stones today is to touch a lost thread of human consciousness. It is an invitation to remember a way of being that saw the world as sacred, interconnected, and full of meaning. You do not need a dowsing rod to feel it. You only need to stand quietly and listen with more than your ears. The stones ask a silent question of every visitor. They ask if we, in all our technological mastery, have truly advanced, or if we have simply forgotten a language we once knew by heart. A new generation of silent explorers is now scanning the ancient landscape, armed not with shovels but with wavelengths of energy. Ground-penetrating radar sends pulses deep into the Earth, painting a picture of the unseen. It reveals the ghost of a post hole from a wooden circle long since rotted away, the outline of a buried ditch, or the tantalizing void of a chamber that no human eye has seen for thousands of years. Electrical resistivity tomography works in a similar way, mapping subterranean features by measuring how the soil resists an electrical current. Stone foundations and filled-in pits show up as clear anomalies, allowing archaeologists to map entire ceremonial complexes without ever breaking the ground. This non-invasive vision is like giving the land itself a voice, letting it tell us where its secrets are buried. From the sky, another set of eyes is watching. Satellite spectroscopy analyzes the light reflected from the Earth's surface to read the chemistry of the soil. Where ancient feet wore a path to a sacred spring, where posts decayed in a grand plaza, or where ritual fires burned for generations, the very minerals in the ground have been altered. These chemical ghosts can outline the shapes of lost structures and roadways, revealing the full extent of a site that appears as only a few stones on the surface today. This technology can scan entire regions, transforming what looks like empty countryside into a detailed map of a lost civilization's footprint. But the sheer volume of data this creates is beyond any single human's ability to process. This is where artificial intelligence enters the story. We can train machine learning algorithms to do what our pattern-seeking brains do, but on a continental scale. An AI can analyze the geographic coordinates of every known megalithic site, searching for geometric relationships and alignment patterns that are simply too vast and complex for us to perceive. It might detect a massive, continent-spanning pentagon of sites, or a spiral pattern radiating from a central, forgotten hub. These are not patterns of belief, but of pure mathematics, hidden in plain sight for millennia. We are standing at the edge of a data explosion, a revolution in our understanding of the prehistoric world. The next decade of discovery will not rely on a single dramatic find, but on the quiet, cumulative power of billions of data points. Each scan from space, each radar profile of a field, each soil analysis adds another piece to the puzzle. This growing body of evidence will soon reach a critical mass, providing the statistical proof needed to either validate the megalithic network as a historical reality or finally lay the theory to rest. The stones have kept their secrets for 5,000 years. Their silence may be broken not by a lone explorer, but by the hum of a server farm, finally decoding the message our ancestors left in the land itself. This single idea rewrites everything we thought we knew about our own past. If the megalithic network is more than a theory, then our entire timeline of human advancement is fundamentally wrong. The official story tells us that civilization began with the Sumerians and Egyptians around 5,000 years ago, a slow, linear climb from simple farming villages to complex cities. But the stones suggest a different origin point, one lost in the mists of a much deeper time. A culture, or a connected web of cultures, appears to have possessed a unified body of knowledge encompassing astronomy, geometry, and Earth measurement on a global scale. They achieved this not as a beginning, but as the high point of a scientific tradition that must have developed over millennia. This pushes the clock of advanced human discovery back by thousands of years into an age we still call prehistory. The implications are staggering. It means that the Pythagorean theorem was not a Greek discovery, but a rediscovery. It means that the mapping of the Earth did not start with Eratosthenes, but was the culmination of a project already ancient in his day. Our linear narrative of progress, this tidy arrow from primitive to advanced, completely shatters. In its place, we see a cyclical pattern, a great pulse of civilization. There is a rise, a golden age of interconnected knowledge and monumental building, followed by a catastrophic fall, a descent into a dark age where that knowledge is fragmented and lost, preserved only in myth and symbol. Then, slowly, the long climb back begins, a painful process of rediscovering truths that were once common knowledge. This cyclical view of history is far more than an academic adjustment. It is a profound shift in how we see ourselves and our potential. It tells us that our current technological civilization is not the first and only peak humanity has ever reached. We are likely just one more cycle in a long series of rises and falls. This realization is deeply empowering. It means that humanity has faced planet-wide catastrophes before and has found a way through. Our ancestors were not primitive brutes struggling for survival. They were partners in a vast, long-term project, cosmic architects who sought to harmonize human life with the fundamental order of the universe. They were asking the same big questions we ask today about our place in the cosmos, and they were building their answers into the very fabric of the planet. This connection transforms them from distant, mysterious figures into our intellectual and spiritual predecessors. Their story becomes our inheritance, a forgotten chapter of human genius that challenges us to rethink not only where we came from, but what we are still capable of achieving together. The journey from Britain's stone circles to the Amazon's geometric earthworks reveals a world interconnected by an ancient intelligence. This evidence of a prehistoric planetary network is both compelling and transformative, reshaping our understanding of human history. We have traced the threads of a universal mathematics, a shared language of celestial observation, and a sacred, geomantic bond with the living Earth. These elements did not exist in isolation. They converged to create a system of astonishing sophistication, a testament to a forgotten age of global cooperation. This story is far more than an archaeological puzzle. It is a profound reminder of a lost dimension of our own human potential, a capacity for large-scale collaboration, deep intelligence, and a harmonious relationship with our planet. The silent stones are a message patiently waiting across millennia. They urge us to lift our gaze to the stars with the wonder of an astronomer and to feel the earth beneath our feet with the reverence of a geomancer. They ask us to remember a time when humanity saw itself not as separate from nature, but as an active, conscious participant in a living universe. Let this exploration be a starting point for your own curiosity. What do these ancient patterns tell you about our place in the world today? Share your thoughts on this enduring mystery in the comments and subscribe to continue this journey into the hidden depths of our shared